In the exclusive gated community of Pelican Bay, Florida, a silent invasion was about to unfold. The sprawling white mansion with its manicured lawns and security cameras belonged to Pam Bondi, former Attorney General of Florida, known for her relentless war on drug trafficking networks. Tonight, moonlight cast long shadows across the property. Bondi sat in her study reviewing case files, unaware that her past was about to come knocking with lethal intentions. Six black SUV with darkened windows rolled silently down the private road, headlights extinguished inside the lead vehicle. Marco Serpian Vasquez, lieutenant of the notorious Kaloa Cartel, checked his weapon and whispered into his radio, "The prosecutor sleeps tonight, but she'll never wake again. This ends now." What El Serpian didn't know was that Pam Bondi never truly slept, and the mansion he was approaching wasn't just a home. It was a fortress designed by someone who had spent decades putting people like him behind bars. The cartel had sent 15 trained killers to silence the woman who had extradited their boss 3 years ago, but they were about to learn a painful lesson about underestimating an American prosecutor who had received more death threats than most generals. Pam Bondi had served as Florida's Attorney General for 8 years, building a reputation as the cartel's worst nightmare. Her signature blonde hair and poised demeanor on television masked an iron will that had helped dismantle trafficking networks across the southern border. Now semi-retired but working as a legal consultant, she had been receiving encrypted warnings from FBI contacts about cartel movements for weeks. They never forget, and they never forgive. Her former security advisor had warned her years ago. Bondi had taken those words to heart, transforming her beautiful Pelican Bay estate into something far more formidable than it appeared. Behind the elegant exterior lay a comprehensive security system that would make most military bases envious. Motion sensors covered every inch of the 3-acre property. Bulletproof glass windows were standard. A hidden panic room contained enough supplies for a month and a direct line to federal authorities. But most importantly, Bondi had assembled a security team that stayed with her after she left office. Michael Reeves, former Navy SEAL, and her head of security, monitored the property from a converted garage that now served as a command center. Sarah Chen, cybersecurity expert who had once worked for the NSA, maintained the digital defenses, and Robert Decker, former Marine with medical training, completed the core team movement at the North Perimeter. Michael's voice came through Bondi's earpiece as she was reviewing documents in her study. His tone was calm but urgent. "Multiple vehicles, lights off. This isn't a social call." Bondi closed her laptop and moved to the window, keeping to the side as she had been trained. "How many?" she asked, her voice steady despite the adrenaline now coursing through her veins. "I count 15 signatures have armed. They're cutting the power lines now." She smiled slightly. "They think that will help them." The mansion had been designed with redundant systems. When the main power went out, the backup generators kicked in seamlessly, but Bondi's team didn't activate them. Exterior lights let the intruders think they had gained an advantage. "Miss Bondi, I recommend you move to the safe room now." Michael advised. "Not yet," she replied, moving to her desk drawer and removing a small hand gun. "Let's see what they do first." Her calm wasn't just bravado. After putting away drug lords for years and receiving countless threats, Bondi had trained extensively in self-defense and tactical response. She wasn't just protected, she was prepared. Outside, El Serpent directed his men to form 3 teams. 5 would approach from the front, 5 from the rear garden, and 5 would circle to cover escape routes. They moved with practiced efficiency, using hand signals in the darkness. The mansion appeared dark and vulnerable. "Remember, we need proof for the boss," El Serpient told his lieutenant. "Photos make it messy, so others learn the lesson." What the cartel didn't realize was that every movement they made was being recorded, analyzed, and calculated into a response plan that had been years in the making. Infrared cameras tracked their heat signatures. Pressure plates beneath the manicure lawn registered each footstep, and 3 highly trained professionals were about to demonstrate why attacking a former attorney general in her own home was a terrible mistake. Before diving into the heart-pounding action that follows, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more incredible true stories of justice and survival. The support of viewers like you allows us to continue bringing these remarkable accounts to light. The cartel's first team approached the ornate front gates, which had been left conspicuously unlocked. El Serpent's right hand man Dees hesitated. "It's too easy," he whispered. "Something's wrong. She's a retired politician, not a general." El Serpent hissed back. "The security company probably forgot to lock up." "Move in inside the control room." Michael watched the thermal signatures converge on the property. "They're taking the bait," he noted to Sarah, who was monitoring the system's digital defenses against any attempts to hack in. Team 1 is approaching the front gate. Outdoor audio sensors are picking up Spanish. "Definitely. Cartel," Sarah confirmed. "I'm recording everything for FBI evidence." As the first team pushed through the gate, motion activated sensors triggered silent alerts. Michael's finger hovered over the first countermeasure button. "Miss Bondi, first team is through the outer perimeter. Your call." In her study, now dimly lit by emergency lighting, Bondi remained calm. "Let them get halfway up the drive. I want them committed." The cartel members moved cautiously up the winding driveway, weapons drawn, confused by the lack of alarm response. When the 5 men reached the midpoint of the drive, Bondi gave the order. "Now." Michael pressed the button, and suddenly the hidden sprinkler system erupted, not with water, but with an oil-based irritant that sprayed across the entire driveway. The men slipped and fell cursing as the substance burned their eyes and skin. It wasn't lethal, but it was incredibly effective at disorienting and distracting lights. Bondi commanded. The front of the property was suddenly flooded with blindingly bright LED floodlights, specifically positioned to create maximum disorientation. The team on the driveway covered their eyes, now completely exposed and vulnerable. "What's happening?" El Serpent demanded over the radio, but received only confused shouts in response. Meanwhile, the second team had reached the rear garden, unaware of their colleagues' fate. As they approached the terrace doors, Robert activated the second phase of defenses. Disguised speakers embedded throughout the garden began blaring deafening police sirens, while strobe lights flashed from multiple directions. "They think the police are already here," Robert reported with satisfaction. The garden team scattered in confusion, firing wildly at shadows as the disorienting combination of lights and sound destroyed their coordination. 2 members ran straight into each other, while another fired at what he thought was a person, but was actually an ornamental statue. El Serpent, monitoring from the perimeter, realized something was terribly wrong. "Hold positions," he shouted into his radio. "This is a trap." But Bondi's team wasn't finished. Sarah activated the electromagnetic pulse device that had been installed after a previous threat, instantly frying any electronic equipment within a 50-yard radius. The cartel's radios went dead. Their phones useless. Night vision goggles shorted out. "They're blind and can't communicate," Sarah reported. "Third team is trying to circle back to the vehicles." "Perfect," Bondi replied. "Michael phase 3." Michael nodded and triggered the property's most impressive defensive feature, retractable barriers that emerged from the carefully landscaped grounds, effectively cutting off the escape routes. The third team found themselves trapped between steel barriers that had seemingly sprouted from the earth inside the mansion. Bondi moved calmly to the panic room, which doubled as the secondary command center. Multiple screens showed the chaos unfolding on her property. "Call it in," she instructed Sarah. "Tell them we have an active situation with approximately 15 armed individuals." Sarah activated the direct FBI alert system. "Federal response. Team Ida is 7 minutes," she reported after receiving confirmation. Outside, El Serpent was furious and bewildered. Half his team was incapacitated, the others trapped and disoriented. This was supposed to be a simple hit, a message to others who might challenge the cartel. Instead, it had become a humiliating failure. He decided to take matters into his own hands. "Get her myself," he growled to his remaining men. He approached the side of the mansion, where a service entrance seemed less well lit. What he didn't realize was that Bondi's team had deliberately left this apparent vulnerability. As El Serpent reached the door and began working on the lock, Robert Watched from a hidden security station, target is at the service entrance. He reported to Bondi permission to engage defensive measures. Not yet, Bondi replied, watching the screen with narrow eyes. Let him think he's getting in. I want them all contained. When authorities arrive, El Serpent finally forced the lock and entered what appeared to be a laundry room, smiling at his success. He moved through the darkened room toward an interior door gun raised as he reached for the handle. The door to the outside slammed shut behind him, and metallic shutters dropped over the windows, simultaneously vents in the ceiling released a non-lethal but disorienting gas. El Serpent fired blindly in panic before the gas overwhelmed him, and he collapsed to the floor. Containment successful. Robert reported all primary intruders are either incapacitated or trapped outside. The remaining cartel members were in disarray without leadership or communication. Some tried to flee on foot, put only to find every exit blocked by the hidden barriers. Others attempted to regroup, but without radios coordination was impossible. The carefully planned attack had turned into a chaotic disaster. Through it all, Bondi remained steady, directing her team with the same decisive clarity that had made her such an effective attorney general. As the sounds of approaching sirens became audible, she allowed herself a small, satisfied smile. Sarah, prepare the security footage for the FBI. Michael, ensure all containment measures remain active until authorities clear each section. Robert, stand by with medical if needed. Even these people deserve treatment if seriously injured. The cartel had brought 15 trained killers to eliminate one woman. Instead, they found themselves outmaneuvered, trapped, and awaiting federal charges that would put them away for decades. And Pam Bondi hadn't fired a single shot. Federal agents swarmed the property, weapons drawn, moving with practiced efficiency to secure each incapacitated or trapped cartel member. FBI Special Agent Derek Thompson, who had worked with Bondi on numerous cartel cases during her tenure as Attorney General, approached the mansion after the all-clear was given. Bondi met him at the front door, her composure intact despite the chaos that had unfolded on her property. Madam Attorney General, Thompson greeted her with professional respect. Your security measures were impressive. I've made enough enemies to justify the expense, Agent Thompson, she replied with a slight smile, though I admit I didn't expect them to be quite so brazen. As they walked toward the command center, Thompson shook his head in amazement. 15 cartel hitmen, and not one of them got past your outer defenses. El Serpent is the only one who even made it inside, and he walked straight into a trap. The service entrance was designed for exactly that purpose. Bondi explained. People always look for the path of least resistance. We simply made one that appeared vulnerable, but was actually the most secure. In the circular driveway, FBI agents were processing the cartel members. Some were still disoriented from the chemical irrit, others nursing minor injuries from their panicked attempts to escape. El Serpent, now handcuffed and seated in the back of an FBI vehicle, glared at Bondi with undisguised hatred. When she emerged, you knew we were coming, he accused in heavily accented English. Bondi approached the vehicle, her security team tense, but allowing her this moment. She looked El Serpent directly in the eyes. Mr. Vasquez, I've been expecting someone like you for years. The only surprise was how poorly planned your attack was. Her voice was calm, almost conversational. When you target a prosecutor, you should expect that they understand the concept of defense in depth. El Serpent spat toward her. But miss, the cartel doesn't forget. Others will come. Others have come before you, Bondi replied evenly. They're all serving multiple life sentences. You'll have plenty of company. As she turned away, Special Agent Thompson handed her a tablet displaying information they'd already gleaned from the cartel members' phones and equipment recovered from their vehicles. This wasn't just a revenge hit, Thompson explained. Based on the communications we've recovered, they were sent by Xavier Mendoza himself. Bondi's eyebrows rose slightly. Mendoza was the new head of the Kaloa cartel, having taken over after she had helped prosecute his predecessor. He's getting desperate if he's sending his people this deep Into U.S. territory, desperate men make mistakes. Thompson agreed this attack gives us probable cause for a whole new level of investigation into his operations. The intelligence we're gathering from these arrests will set his organization back years. Michael approached and handed Bondi a secure phone. Director Davis from Homeland Security is on the line for you, ma'am. As Bondi took the call, the full impact of the night's events began to take shape. What the cartel had intended as a show of force and intimidation had instead become a devastating blow to their organization. 15 of their operators captured, direct links to Mendoza exposed, and new investigations authorized based on evidence recovered from the scene. The news vans were already gathering at the community gates, alerted by police scanners, and the considerable FBI presence by morning. The story would be national news, not of a successful cartel hit, but of a humiliating failure that exposed the organization to unprecedented scrutiny. The director wants to personally ensure you have additional federal protection until the situation is fully resolved. Michael informed Bondi as she ended the call. That won't be necessary, she replied. The best protection I have is making sure everyone knows what happened here tonight. The cartel thrives on projecting fear and invincibility. Tonight shattered that illusion as dawn broke over the property. The last of the cartel members were being transported away in federal vehicles. Crime scene technicians combed the grounds, documenting the sophisticated security measures that had so thoroughly defeated the attack. Sarah had provided them with complete video recordings from multiple angles, thus ensuring that prosecutors would have overwhelming evidence standing on her terrace watching the activity below. Bondi felt a complex mix of emotions. There was relief, certainly, but also a grim satisfaction. Throughout her career, she had stood firm against threats and intimidation. Tonight had vindicated that stance in the most definitive way possible. They never should have come here, Robert said, joining her with a cup of coffee. No, she agreed, accepting the coffee gratefully, but I'm almost glad they did. Now everyone will understand that these organizations aren't invincible. They can be outsmarted, outplanned, and defeated. Below, El Serpent was being transferred to a higher security transport. He looked up one last time at the mansion he had expected to leave in triumph. Instead, he was departing in chains, and the woman he had come to kill stood watching from her terrace, untouched and unafraid. It was a powerful image, one that would soon be broadcast across the country and back the cartel territories, where Xavier Mendoza would learn that attacking Pam Bondi had been the greatest mistake of his criminal career. 3 weeks after the failed raid, Pam Bondi stood at a podium in the Department of Justice in Washington, D.C., addressing a room full of journalists. The story of cartel's attack on her mansion had captivated the nation, transforming from a news item into a powerful symbol of standing firm against organized crime. What happened at my home was not just an attack on one person, Bondi stated, her voice steady and authoritative. It was an attack on our entire justice system, an attempt to intimidate those who uphold our laws and protect our communities. Behind her stood the director of the FBI, the Secretary of Homeland Security, and several prosecutors who had worked cartel cases. This wasn't just a press conference, it was a show of unified strength. I am pleased to announce that as a direct result of intelligence gathered from the 15 individuals who attacked my property, federal agencies have conducted coordinated raids across 6 states and 2 countries, resulting in the seizure of over $300 million in cartel assets and the arrests of 27 high-ranking members of the Kaloa organization. The room erupted with questions, cameras flashing. Bondi raised a hand for quiet before continuing. Xavier Mendoza, who ordered the attack, was apprehended yesterday in a joint operation between us and Mexican authorities. His attempt to silence me has instead dismantled much of his operation and ended his brief reign as the cartel's leader. The irony wasn't lost on anyone present. What was intended as a demonstration of the cartel's reach and power had instead become a showcase of their vulnerability. Mendoza had sent his men to make an example of Bondi, only to become Example himself. After the press conference, Bondi returned to Florida, where her home had become something of a legend. Security companies requested tours of the property to study its defenses. Law enforcement agencies asked her to speak about her preparations and response. She declined most of these requests, preferring to maintain the mystery around her security measures. One evening, as she sat in her study, the same room where she had received the first alert about the impending attack, Michael brought in a special delivery that had been thoroughly screened by security. "It's from Judge Martinez," he explained, placing the package on her desk. Inside was a framed newspaper clipping with a handwritten note. The headline read, "Cartel Kingpin Mendoza Sentencing Judge Cites Bondi Precedent in Maximum Security Designation." The note simply read, "They came to make an example of you. Instead, you made an example of them. The Bondi precedent will protect many others. Thank you for your courage, Judge." Sophia Martinez Bondi smiled as she placed the frame on her desk. Throughout her career, she had faced threats and intimidation. There had been times when she questioned whether the personal cost of standing against such powerful criminal organizations was worth it. The night of the raid had answered that question decisively. Later that week, she welcomed a small group of current and former state attorneys general to her home. They had requested a private meeting to discuss security protocols. Prosecutors handling cartel cases. As they gathered in her living room, the atmosphere was one of collegial respect mixed with undisguised curiosity about the defenses that had so thoroughly defeated the cartel attack. "The most important thing to understand," Bondi explained, "is that physical security measures are only part of the equation. What really defeated them was preparation, intelligence, and psychological understanding of how these organizations operate." She walked them through her security team's approach, not just the technology and barriers, but the strategic thinking that had guided their design. "We created a defense that exploited their expectations. They expected a soft target, a retired prosecutor living in luxury. What they found was a prepared adversary who had anticipated their methods and planned accordingly." One of the visitors, a newly elected attorney general from Texas, asked the question that was on everyone's mind, "Aren't you concerned about retaliation? Other cartel factions might see this as a challenge." Bondi's response was measured but firm. "The most dangerous position to be in is to appear vulnerable but have value as a target. I chose instead to demonstrate unequivocally that attacking me comes with too high a cost. It's not about being intimidating, it's about being a hard target, not worth the risk." As the discussion continued into the evening, Bond shared something she hadn't told the press the night of the attack. "I wasn't just defending myself, I was thinking about every prosecutor, judge, and law enforcement officer who stands against these organizations. We need to show that our justice system cannot be intimidated, that for every threat they make, they only strengthen our resolve." In the months that followed, law enforcement agencies noted a marked decrease in threats against prosecutors and judges handling cartel cases. The Bondi precedent, as it had come to be known, had shifted the calculation for criminal organizations considering intimidation tactics. A year after the raid, Bondi published a book titled "Standing Firm: How America Can Win War Against Cartel Intimidation." It became required reading at the FBI Academy and law schools across the country. In it, she wrote, "The greatest weapon in the arsenal of criminal organizations is not their violence, but the fear it creates when we refuse to be intimidated, when we transform their attacks into their defeats. We don't just protect ourselves, we protect the very foundation of justice upon which our society depends." The mansion in Pelican Bay remained her home, its defenses updated but largely invisible to casual observers. To the outside world, it appeared simply as the elegant residence of a successful former public servant, but within the world of law enforcement and criminal organizations, it had become a powerful symbol, a reminder that sometimes the most dangerous enemy is the one who is fully prepared for your attack. As for Elser Pent and his team, they began serving Multiple life sentences in maximum security, federal prisons scattered across the country to prevent them from maintaining cartel connections, their failed raid, meant to write a story of cartel vengeance, had instead become a case study in justice prevailing against intimidation. The lesson was clear, and it extended far beyond one mansion in Florida in the ongoing battle between law and criminality. Preparation and courage could turn the hunters into the hunted and transform a potential tragedy into a triumph of justice. If you've made it this far in our story, you're clearly someone who appreciates tales of justice, strategy, and standing firm against intimidation. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more incredible true stories like this one.